Alright, let's talk about Assassin's Creed. Ubisoft has been cranking out these games almost every year, and let's be real, some have been absolute bangers, while others, well, not so much. But whether you love sneaking through the shadows, parkouring across rooftops, or just getting lost in ridiculously detailed historical settings, there's always something fun to dig into. The series has evolved a lot over the years, shifting from its classic stealthy roots to full-blown open-world RPG madness. And yet, at its core, it's always been about hidden blades, secret conspiracies, and jumping off tall buildings into conveniently placed haystacks. Now, ranking these games? That's where things get tricky. Everyone has their personal favorite, whether it's because of the story, the protagonist, or just the vibes of the setting. But let's be honest, some Assassin's Creed games have aged like fine wine, while others feel a little clunky by today's standards. So today, we're diving into all 13 main series games, from the absolute best to the ones that maybe should have stayed in the Animus. Let's get into it. I'm quickly moving on to the video. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching! The first Assassin's Creed, a game that blew our minds back in the day by taking Prince of Persia's wall-running antics and saying, what if you could climb anything? And just like that, we were scaling cathedrals, diving into haystacks, and feeling like the ultimate parkour master. It was a revolutionary concept at the time, giving players complete freedom to navigate the city. And then, boom! Plot twist. You're not actually a badass assassin. You're just some dude in the future named Desmond, stuck in a weird sci-fi experiment. Mind-blowing. At least the first time around. Now don't get me wrong, Assassin's Creed laid the groundwork for one of gaming's biggest franchises. The stealth, the hidden blade, the leap of faith. It all started here. But let's be real. The gameplay loop was painfully repetitive. Every mission felt like a copy-paste job. Climb a tower, eavesdrop, pickpocket, stab a guy, repeat. And Altair? The dude had all the personality of a soggy piece of bread. A cool-looking bread, sure, but still bread. And then there's the historical accuracy, or lack thereof. While the game introduced us to beautifully recreated cities, it also set the stage for the series to occasionally throw history out the window whenever it felt like it. Future games would sometimes embrace their historical settings, and other times, well, let's just say they took a few creative liberties. But hey, at least it gave us an excuse to stab Templars in cool outfits, and really, isn't that what we're here for? Assassin's Creed Rogue is one of those games that kind of slips through the cracks. It doesn't quite reach the heights of Black Flag, and it certainly doesn't reinvent the series. Instead, it feels like a side story that just happens to give us a different perspective, one where the assassins aren't the good guys for once. But let's be real, Shay Patrick Cormac, not exactly the most memorable protagonist. He's more of a guy who just happens to be there rather than a legendary figure in assassin history. And the irony? A game literally called Rogue is about a guy who ditches the whole rebel lifestyle and becomes a glorified enforcer for the Templars. Go figure. Now, if you love the naval combat in Black Flag, you're in luck because Rogue is basically built on that foundation. Sailing the icy waters of the North Atlantic? Pretty cool. Blasting enemy ships into splinters? Always fun. But step off the deck and things start to feel off. The controls on land? Clunky. The parkour? Not as fluid as it should be. And while the historical figures you meet are intriguing, they're gone before you can really appreciate them. It's like the game is constantly reminding you that it could have done more, but just didn't. That being said, Rogue isn't a bad game. It's just stuck in this weird limbo. It has the DNA of a great Assassin's Creed experience, but never fully realizes its potential. It's the kind of game that feels like a bonus episode rather than a full season. If you're a hardcore fan of the series, sure, give it a go. But if you're looking for something revolutionary, you're better off setting sail somewhere else. Assassin's Creed Freedom Cry is one of the most underrated gems in the series. Sure, it started as a DLC for Black Flag, but don't let that fool you. This game packs more heart and intensity into 7 hours than some full-length entries manage in twice the time. Adewale isn't just another assassin. He's a former slave-turned-warrior, fighting for something far more personal than just the creed. His story isn't about politics or hidden orders, it's about raw human freedom, and that makes every mission feel like it actually matters. And let's talk about the villains for a second. Assassin's Creed has had plenty of bad guys over the years, but few are as instantly hateable as the plantation owners and slave traders you take down in Freedom Cry. Unlike your typical masked Templar Grandmaster, these enemies don't need a 5-minute monologue to make you want to end them. Every successful assassination feels deeply satisfying, not just because it's a cool stealth takedown, but because you're genuinely making the world a better place. The gameplay? Classic Black Flag mechanics with a sharper, more focused story. You're still boarding ships, sneaking through enemy camps and causing chaos, but this time, every action is tied to Adewale's mission, and that mission is powerful. Freedom Cry doesn't waste time with filler. It hits hard, fast, and leaves an impact. If you haven't played it yet, do yourself a favor and fix that. It's short, but trust me, it sticks with you. Assassin's Creed. Mirage had all the right ideas on paper, going back to the series' roots, stripping away the bloated RPG mechanics, and focusing on a tighter, more traditional stealth experience. Sounds great, right? Well, kinda. While it does deliver a more classic AC feel, it also comes with a much smaller map, fewer activities, and a story that just doesn't hit as hard as it should. Compared to the sprawling epics of Valhalla, Odyssey, and Origins, Mirage feels like a side project rather than a full-fledged entry. Now, don't get me wrong, there are things Mirage does well. The parkour, smooth. The stealth, much more in line with the older games. The world, a beautifully crafted slice of Baghdad that feels alive. But the problem is, once you take it all in, there's just not much else. The story never quite grabs you, and the characters, while serviceable, don't leave a lasting impact. It's a game that respects the past but struggles to justify itself in the present. Ultimately, Mirage feels like a snack in a series known for serving up full-course meals. It's not bad, it's just not enough. If you've been craving that classic AC experience, you'll probably enjoy it for what it is. But if you were hoping for something that could stand toe-to-toe with the best entries in the series, well, this one might leave you wanting more. Assassin's Creed Revelations, the game that wrapped up Ezio's journey and gave us one last ride with everyone's favorite Italian assassin. By this point, Ezio was older, wiser, and let's be honest, probably a little tired of all the stabbing and secret conspiracies. Ubisoft took him to Constantinople, a fresh setting filled with political intrigue, new mechanics, and, of course, more Templars to take down. It wasn't just about Ezio, though. This game tied his story back to Altair, the OG assassin from the first game, giving longtime fans some much-needed closure on both ends. Now, was Revelations the best in the series? Not exactly. It had some cool additions, like the hook blade, which made parkour a bit smoother, and the bomb crafting system, which let you experiment with all kinds of sneaky or explosive strategies. But let's be real, this game leaned heavily on the fact that players were already invested in Ezio. If you weren't emotionally attached to his journey, the game itself didn't do much to stand out from its predecessors. The tower defense minigame? Yeah, we don't talk about that. Still, despite its flaws, Revelations gave Ezio a proper send-off. His final moments in the game were poetic, showing us an assassin who had finally found peace after a lifetime of war. It wasn't about the Brotherhood anymore. It was about a man who had completed his purpose. And honestly, that's what made the game special. It wasn't just another chapter, it was a farewell. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, the game that made us realize we could never get enough of Ezio Auditore. After the absolute blast that was Assassin's Creed 2, Ubisoft knew exactly what they were doing by bringing back our favorite Renaissance assassin. This time, the playground was Rome, a city dense with history, intrigue, and of course, rooftops perfect for parkour. The game refined AC2's mechanics, introduced the Brotherhood system, because who doesn't love calling in assassins like they're ordering pizza, and delivered a satisfying, if somewhat familiar, experience. But then, there was the multiplayer. Oh, the multiplayer. See, in the early 2010s, every game felt the need to slap on an online mode, whether it made sense or not. And while Brotherhood's approach, using the Animus as an excuse for Templars in training to hunt each other, was at least somewhat creative, it still felt like one of those, we gotta have this corporate decisions. Not that it was bad, it had a unique take on cat and mouse gameplay, and some players really got into it. But let's be real, nobody was buying Brotherhood for the multiplayer. At its core, Brotherhood was about Ezio's journey, his leadership of the assassins, and the continued evolution of Assassin's Creed gameplay. Did it reinvent the wheel? No. But did it polish the formula to near perfection? Absolutely. The game gave us more of what we loved while sneaking in just enough new ideas to keep things fresh. And hey, who wouldn't want more Ezio? Ubisoft could have given us 5 more games with him and no one would have complained. Well, almost no one. Assassin's Creed Unity. The game that could have been legendary but ended up as a cautionary tale. Let's be real, it had potential. The setting? Incredible. The French Revolution was a goldmine for a historical playground, and running through the streets of Paris felt amazing. The atmosphere? Top tier. It was like stepping into Les Miserables, but with more hidden blades and fewer depressing musical numbers. But then, there was Arno. Poor guy had the misfortune of being born right after Ezio. And let's face it, he felt like a watered-down version of everyone's favorite Renaissance assassin. And oh boy, let's talk about the launch. If you played Unity at release, you either had a hilarious time watching NPCs turn into horror movie creatures, or you somehow, by divine intervention, had a smooth experience. I was in the lucky minority, but most people weren't. Add to that the absolute flood of collectibles, repetitive side missions, and go here, stab this guy objectives. And you had a game that felt more like a chore than an adventure at times. It didn't help that this came right after Black Flag, a game where you could captain a pirate ship and live out your Jack Sparrow fantasies. Unity? Not a single ship. That's an immediate downgrade. But even with all its flaws, I can't hate this game. The parkour? Easily the best in the series. The co-op missions? When they worked, they were some of the most fun moments you could have in an AC game. And let's be honest, there's just something cool about slicing through enemies in a beautifully recreated Paris, while the revolution rages on around you. Was it perfect? Not even close. But was it memorable? Absolutely. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. A game that promised us the ultimate Viking fantasy, but instead left us questioning our life choices. Let's be real. This game is long. Not, oh, I'll just play for a bit before bed long, but I started this game in my 20s and now I have back pain long. The story drags on with so many arcs that by the time you reach the end, you barely remember why you started. And instead of answering the big questions about the Assassin-Templar conflict, it just throws more mystery at you, like a conspiracy theory rabbit hole you never meant to fall into. But here's the weird thing. Despite all that, Valhalla still has moments that absolutely shine. The world building? Insane. Every village, every fortress, every hidden ruin feels like it was handcrafted with love and obsession. You can almost smell the damp wood of the longhouses and feel the crunch of snow under your boots. And don't even get me started on the sky. Whether it's a crisp sunrise over Norway's fjords or a storm rolling in over England's fields, the weather system in this game is straight up magical. So, is it worth playing? Well, if you have the patience of a monk and a love for Viking history, sure, go for it. But if you're looking for a tight, focused Assassin's Creed experience, this might not be your best bet. Valhalla is like a Viking feast. Huge, overwhelming, and filled with things you didn't ask for. Whether that's a good or bad thing, well, that's up to you. Alright, let's talk about Assassin's Creed Origins, the game that completely flipped the series on its head. New combat, massive open world RPG mechanics, Ubisoft went all in. And to be fair, it worked. The game is stunning, packed with detail, and has some of the best exploration in the series. But here's the thing, I've just never been that into Ptolemaic Egypt. I know, it's a weird gripe, but for me, a huge part of Assassin's Creed is the setting. If I don't vibe with the time period, it's hard for me to stay engaged, no matter how good the gameplay is. And while Origins nails its world building, something about this particular era just never clicked with me. That said, I can't deny how well this game plays. The combat is crunchy, the world feels alive, and Bayek, easily one of the strongest protagonists in the series. He's got depth, emotion, and a personal story that actually lands. But Origins also introduced some, let's call them, questionable mechanics. Loot grinding, enemy levels, and a gear system that made progression feel a bit more like a chore. And guess what? Odyssey and Valhalla took one look at that and said, yeah, let's double down on that. So, thanks for that, Origins. Still, even if I didn't love the setting, I can respect what this game did for the franchise. Without it, Assassin's Creed would have stayed in that yearly release, formulaic slump forever. It took risks, and even if not all of them landed, it made the series feel fresh again. So yeah, Origins, great game, just not my favorite. But hey, if ancient Egypt is your thing, then you probably had the time of your life climbing pyramids and taking in those gorgeous desert vistas. Me? I'll be over here waiting for Ubisoft to drop an Assassin's Creed set in, I don't know, the Mongol Empire or something. Now that I'd be into... Assassin's Creed 3. The game that had the impossible task of following up Assassin's Creed 2 and the entire Ezio trilogy. No pressure, right? And while Connor might not have had the same charisma or longevity as Ezio, his story was arguably more intense. We're talking about a guy caught between two worlds, raised by the Mohawk, yet fighting in the American Revolution. The stakes were huge, and while not everyone clicked with his personality, you can't deny how ambitious his journey was. But let's be real, one of the absolute best things AC3 brought to the table was naval combat. Sure, it was a bit basic compared to what we'd later get in Black Flag, but this was the moment that planted the seed. Taking control of the Aquila, blasting enemy ships to pieces with cannon fire, it was a game changer. And let's not forget how good the game looked. The wilderness was a major step up from the usual cityscapes, giving us sprawling forests, rivers, and even hunting mechanics. It made the world feel so much more alive. Now, was it perfect? Nope. The pacing was a bit all over the place, and the modern-day sections, well, let's just say they existed. But AC3 still deserves credit for pushing the series forward in bold ways. It may not have reached the same legendary status as AC2, but it laid the groundwork for some of the coolest mechanics in the franchise, and for that, it deserves some love. Assassin's Creed Shadows is exactly what the series needed. A gorgeous, immersive world that's packed with things to do without feeling like a never-ending checklist. Exploring feels rewarding, not exhausting. Every corner of the map invites curiosity, and the world actually feels alive. It's the kind of game where you set out to do one thing and end up getting lost in side activities for hours. And honestly, that's a good thing. Combat is another major win here. It's fast, it's brutal, and it makes every encounter feel like an opportunity rather than an obstacle. Yasuke and Naoe, the two protagonists, add even more variety. Yasuke's raw power and Naoe's stealth-focused playstyle complement each other perfectly, making sure gameplay never feels stale. They also have great chemistry, which makes their interactions a highlight of the story. Speaking of the story, well, that's where Shadows stumbles a bit. The setup is strong, and the first half keeps you hooked, but things start to feel muddled as the game goes on. It's not bad, just a little messy. But even with that, Assassin's Creed Shadows is the most fun this series has been in years. If you've been waiting for the franchise to get back on track, this is the one. Assassin's Creed 2 is where the series truly found its stride. The first game laid the foundation, sure, but it had its rough edges. Altair was a bit too serious, the world felt repetitive, and the gameplay, while innovative, could get clunky. Then came Ezio Auditore da Firenze, a charismatic, stylish, and downright fun protagonist who took everything good about the original and made it shine. Suddenly, parkour was smoother, combat had more variety, and the story had real emotional weight. This wasn't just a game, it was an adventure. And let's talk about the setting. Renaissance Italy. Not only was it visually stunning, but it was packed with personality. You weren't just climbing generic buildings, you were scaling Florence's Duomo or running across the rooftops of Venice. And then there was Leonardo da Vinci. Yes, the Leonardo da Vinci, acting as your personal Q, whipping up gadgets and upgrades like hidden gun attachments and flying machines. It was historical fiction at its best, blending real figures with the world of the assassins in a way that made you feel like you were living in a secret history book. What makes Assassin's Creed 2 so special is how it redefined what a sequel should be. It didn't just add new features, it fixed what was broken, expanded what worked, and gave players a world they actually wanted to get lost in. Whether you were diving off a tower into a haystack, engaging in a rooftop chase, or uncovering the hidden mysteries of the Assassin Order, everything felt refined and rewarding. This wasn't just an upgrade, it was a revolution. You know, Assassin's Creed Syndicate doesn't always get the love it deserves, but for me, it's hands down one of the most fun entries in the entire series. There's just something about Jacob and Evie Fry that makes the game feel so alive. Their constant banter, their totally opposite approaches to, well, everything, and the way they just own Victorian London like it's their personal playground. And speaking of London, this game nails the atmosphere. The smog-filled streets, the grime, the industrial chaos. It's exactly how I imagined the city in the late 1800s. You can almost smell the coal smoke in the air. And let's talk about the historical figures, because Syndicate goes full-on fan service mode with them. Charles Dickens? He's here. Charles Darwin? Him too. Alexander Graham Bell? You bet. The game basically throws you into a time-traveling VIP party, and it's honestly just fun to run around solving mysteries with Dickens or testing out crazy inventions with Bell. Sure, some of it is totally ridiculous, but that's part of the charm. It never takes itself too seriously, which makes it one of the more light-hearted AC games. A nice break from all the brooding assassins and tragic backstories. But what really sets Syndicate apart for me is how fun it is just to exist in its world. I'd boot up the game with no real goal in mind and just wander, climbing up Big Ben, hijacking carriages, ziplining across rooftops like some kind of Victorian Spider-Man. There's always something to do. It might not be the most revolutionary AC game, but it has a certain energy that keeps me coming back. And honestly, I think that's what makes it one of the best. Assassin's Creed 4. Black Flag took everything we loved about the series. Sneaky assassinations, a sprawling open world, and a compelling historical setting, and threw it onto the high seas with a pirate twist. Just when the franchise was starting to feel a little predictable, Ubisoft said, "You know what? Let's give players a ship, a crew, and a whole ocean to explore." And honestly, it worked. Instead of just stalking targets through crowded streets, you were hunting treasure, raiding forts, and getting into intense naval battles where cannon fire and shanties filled the air. And let's talk about Edward Kenway for a second. This guy wasn't your typical brooding assassin. He was a charming, cocky, and occasionally reckless pirate who cared more about gold than the Assassin-Templar conflict, at least at first. But that's what made his journey so engaging. He wasn't some noble hero from the start. He was just a guy trying to make his fortune, which made his slow transformation into something greater feel all the more rewarding. Plus, let's be honest, his Welsh accent and sarcastic one-liners made every cutscene a little more entertaining. But the real star of Black Flag? The open world. The Caribbean was absolutely packed with things to do. One minute, you're diving into a shipwreck looking for loot. The next, you're leading a full-blown assault on a Spanish fort. And let's not forget the thrill of boarding an enemy ship, swinging across with a rope, taking down a few enemy captains, and watching your crew cheer as you claim another prize. It wasn't just an Assassin's Creed game, it was the best pirate game we'd ever gotten. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is the game that took everything great about Origins and cranked it up to 11. A massive open world? Check. Deeper RPG mechanics with upgrades, choices, and progression that actually feel meaningful? Absolutely. And let's talk about the sailing. Because if you loved Black Flag's naval combat, Odyssey made it even better. Cruising through the Aegean, recruiting crew members, and unleashing volleys of arrows at enemy ships never got old. Plus, the game is huge, like players are still uncovering hidden details in the main story, huge. One of the best things Ubisoft did was finally give players the choice to play as either Cassandra or Alexios. And it wasn't just a cosmetic change. Cassandra, in particular, was such a well-written and performed character that she quickly became a fan favorite. On top of that, the game fully embraced player agency, allowing your character's romantic preferences to be completely up to you. No forced love interests, no restrictions, just pure freedom to shape your own journey, which was a refreshing step forward for the series. And of course, we have to talk about the setting. Ancient Greece was the dream location for an Assassin's Creed game, and it absolutely delivered. From the sun-soaked islands to the bustling cities and the war-torn battlefields of the Peloponnesian War, every inch of this world felt alive. Climbing the towering statues of the gods, running through the streets of Athens, and even debating with Socrates, it all added to the immersion. Odyssey didn't just let you play in ancient Greece, it made you feel like you were truly living in it. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.